Every village has that one girl, the one whose eyes dream beyond the dusty red earth paths. In Umuaka, that girl was Ada, just 19, yet her heart beat for something bigger than the farm, bigger than the evening moonlight tales. She left her small village for Lagos, carrying nothing but a Ghana Musco bag and dreams as wide as the sky. But Lagos is a city that gives with one hand and takes with the other. Ada found love in Kunle, a smooth-talking city boy who promised her forever. She gave him her all, her trust, her body, her future. Yet in the end, Kunle betrayed her in a way that cut deeper than any knife. This is not just Ada's story. It is the story of every dreamer who ever left home in search of something more. So my people, sit back, relax, and journey with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do so now, because this tale will touch your heart and leave you thinking long after it ends. In a small village tucked between red earth hills and long winding streams, there lived a young woman named Ada. She was not the firstborn of her family, and neither was she the last, but somehow she carried the burden of both positions. Ada's father had died when she was only 13, leaving her mother with 6 children to raise alone. From that day, Ada's life turned into one long apprenticeship of survival. You see, in the village, when a man dies, the children become like young palm trees in the dry season, bending under the hot sun, waiting for someone to water them. Ada's mother tried, she really tried, but the farm could only feed them so much. School fees became a struggle, clothing was patched and repatched until the fabric itself grew tired. But Ada was not the type of girl to fold her hands and watch poverty cage her. No. She had a fire inside her, the kind of fire that you see in a goat's stubborn eyes when you try to pull it away from fresh cassava leaves. From a young age, she would tell her mother, "Mama, one day, I will leave this village. I will go to the city. I will work, I will make money, and I will come back to build you a fine house with zinc roof that will shine in the sun." Her mother would only sigh, half in hope, half in fear. For the city was not a simple place. Many had left before, chasing dreams like smoke, only to return broken, ashamed, or never to return at all. But Ada's spirit was different. In school, she was sharp like a fresh razor blade. Even when she trekked 3 miles barefoot to the community secondary school, she would still arrive early. Teachers liked her because her answers came quick and her handwriting was neat like the path of ants. When the principal once asked what she wanted to be in future, Ada had lifted her chin proudly and said, "I want to be a businesswoman, big one. I will travel, I will sell, and I will not beg anybody for bread." Her classmates laughed, but Ada didn't care. A dream, no matter how big, costs nothing to own. Still, life in the village was not easy. Every market day, Ada would help her mother roast groundnuts or sell cassava flour. She knew the weight of money, how hard it was to earn even 10 naira. Sometimes, after school, she would carry a tray of fried akara on her head, moving from compound to compound, shouting, "Hot akara, sweet akara! Buy and eat before it finishes." The boys in the village noticed her, of course. Ada was not the kind of beauty that hid in the shadows. Her skin was the color of ripe mango, smooth and glowing under the sun. Her eyes were bright, quick to laugh, but also quick to flash with anger. And her body, though not yet fully matured, carried the promise of womanhood in the way it moved with strength and grace. Many suitors came, some joking, some serious. But Ada always waved them away. "I am not ready," she would say. "My dream is bigger than marriage for now." In truth, she wanted to taste life beyond the narrow paths of the village before tying herself to any man. One evening, under the mango tree where villagers usually gathered to gossip and chew kola nut, Ada overheard 2 young men talking about Lagos. They spoke of tall buildings that touched the sky, of buses that ran all night, of markets so big that one could get lost inside. They spoke of money, how in one day of hustling in Lagos, you could make what took a whole week to earn in the village. Ada's heart beat faster as she listened. Lagos. The name itself sounded like a doorway to her dreams. She began to imagine herself walking in those markets, speaking fast, selling plenty goods, wearing fine clothes. That night, as she lay on her raffia mat, she could not sleep. The walls of the mud hut felt too small, the thatched roof too low. Her spirit was already stretching beyond them, reaching out toward the unknown city. The next morning, she told her mother, "Mama, I want to go to Lagos. I cannot waste my youth here. Let me go and try my luck." Her mother dropped the broom she was using to sweep the compound and stared at her as if she had grown two heads. "Lagos? Do you think Lagos is a place you just wake up and go? My daughter, open your eyes. That city can swallow people. Many have gone and never returned." But Ada was not moved. The fire in her chest burned hotter. "Mama, if I don't try, how will I know? I cannot remain here selling akara forever." For weeks, they argued back and forth. Sometimes Ada would cry. Other times she would kneel and beg. At last, her mother, seeing that her daughter's mind was made up, gave her reluctant blessing. She called Ada aside and pressed a small nylon bag into her hand. Inside was all the money she had been saving secretly, a few crumpled Naira notes. "Take this," she said softly, her voice heavy with both love and fear. "It is not much, but it will help you start. Remember who you are. Don't let that city spoil you." That night, Ada sat outside under the stars, listening to the distant hoot of an owl. She felt excitement, fear, and determination all tangled together. The village had been her beginning, but it could not be her end. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but in her heart she carried a stubborn faith. The elders say, a chick that will grow into a cock is spotted the very day it hatches. And truly, Ada was no ordinary chick. She was born for more. As the cock crowed the following morning, Ada tied her wrapper tightly, packed her few clothes into a small Ghana Musco bag, and prepared to leave the only home she had ever known. The journey of her dreams was about to begin. In every African village, there is a moment when the wind of the city blows into the ears of the youth, and the heart begins to itch for something bigger than farm work and evening moonlight tales. For Ada, that wind blew one Harmattan morning when her cousin, Ngozi, returned from Lagos with fine clothes, soft skin, and a bag that carried the smell of money. Ngozi did not even sit properly before children gathered around her like ants on sugar. She was pressing her small phone, laughing with her painted lips, while everyone in the compound stared at her high-heeled shoes that refused to sink into the village sand. Ada's eyes followed her every move, and something in her heart whispered, "One day, this will be me." That night, after the compound had settled, Ada could not sleep. The mat felt too rough, the oil lamp too dim. She was thinking about Lagos, the lights, the busy roads, the tall houses she heard about in stories. In her mind, Lagos was a place where life moved fast, where people could become somebody overnight. Days turned into weeks, and Ada's desire only grew. She began to complain about the endless farm work, the pounding of cassava, and the way her mother's voice echoed every morning, telling her to wake early. She wanted something else, something more. Her opportunity came like an accident. One afternoon, while Ada was selling palm oil at the village square, she met a woman named Mama Chidinma, who was preparing to travel back to Lagos. Mama Chidinma had noticed Ada's hard-working nature before, and she said to her, "Ada, if you want, you can follow me. I know a madam in Lagos who needs a shop girl. You will have food, a roof over your head, and small money to save." Ada's heart leaped like a drum. She didn't even wait to think twice. That night, she went home and knelt before her mother. "Mama, I want to go to Lagos. I don't want this village life forever. Let me try my luck." Her mother's face fell like a broken calabash. "My daughter, Lagos is not easy. The same Lagos that makes people is the same Lagos that destroys them. You are my only child. If something happens to you there, who will I have left?" But Ada's mind was already made up. She spoke with the confidence of youth. "Mama, let me go. If I succeed, I will bring you joy. If I fail, at least I tried." After days of begging and crying, her mother finally agreed, though her heart was heavy. She gave Ada her last savings, a small wrapper tied with coins, and whispered, "May God protect you. Remember the daughter of whom you are." The journey to Lagos was like a dream. Ada had never sat inside a big bus before. The windows carried in hot dust, but her eyes were glued to the roads. Villages passed, then towns, and soon tall buildings began to rise like giants. The traffic, the noise, the endless honking of cars, it was as if she had stepped into another world. When they finally arrived, Lagos greeted Ada with its two faces, beauty and madness. The streets of Balogun Market were alive with shouting traders, men pushing wheelbarrows, women balancing baskets on their heads, and small boys rushing about selling sachet water. Ada's heart pounded, both with fear and excitement. Mama Chidinma led her straight to Madame Ifeoma's shop. Madam was a plump woman with loud voice and sharp eyes. She sold fabrics, lace, ankara, and all kinds of cloth that women loved to wear on Sundays. Madam looked at Ada from head to toe and nodded. "She will do," she said, as if Ada were a goat being inspected for sale. Life in Lagos began. Every morning, Ada woke before the cock crowed. She swept the shop, arranged the fabrics, and shouted prices until her voice cracked. The city was fast, and Ada had to learn fast too. She learned how to smile at customers even when they insulted her, how to count money quickly without making a mistake, and how to eat bread and pure water for breakfast without complaint. But Lagos was not just work. At night, when she lay on her mat in Madam's small flat, she would listen to the distant sound of music from bars, the horns of Danfo buses, and the chatter of neighbors. Sometimes she would climb to the balcony and look at the lights of the city, stretching far like stars that refused to sleep. It was in this new life that Ada met Kunle. Kunle was a young man who sold shoes across from Madame Ifeoma's shop. He was tall, with a smile that seemed to know how to enter a woman's heart. At first, Ada ignored him, but Kunle had a way of talking that was sweet like honey. He would buy pure water and purposely ask Ada to help him open it. He would joke about Lagos traffic, about Madame Ifeoma's loud voice, about the small rats that ran across the market at night. Slowly, Ada began to laugh at his words. One evening, as the market was closing, Kunle walked with Ada down the street. "Ada," he said softly, "you are not like other girls in Lagos. You carry yourself with respect. One day, you will be great." Those words sank into Ada's heart. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that before. She looked at Kunle and saw not just a shoe seller, but a young man with dreams like hers. From that day, Ada's life in Lagos began to change. She was no longer just a shop girl struggling to survive. She was a young woman standing at the edge of love, of promise, of a future she had never imagined. But as every elder will tell you, the city is like a masquerade. You admire it from a distance, but when you get too close, it can knock you down. Ada was about to learn that lesson. Love, my people, is like palm wine. When it is fresh, it is sweet and can make even the oldest man dance like a boy. That was how Ada's heart felt in those first months with Kunle. Every day carried one kind of sweetness, and every word from his mouth was like sugar poured into her ears. Kunle began to show Ada a side of Lagos she had never seen. He took her to places she had only heard of before. Sometimes it was a buka in Surulere, where the amala was so soft it melted inside the mouth. Other times, it was a cinema at Ikeja where they sat in the cold hall, Ada holding popcorn like she was holding treasure. She would look around and wonder, is this really me? A girl from a small village now sitting in this big place? Kunle always smiled at her wonder. "You deserve even more, my Ada," he would say, holding her hand. "Just be patient. My business is growing, and one day I will build you a house in Lekki. You won't suffer again." And Ada believed him. How could she not? His voice carried hope like church songs on Sunday morning. She began to build her own dreams on top of his promises. Even in her small one-room apartment, Ada started to feel like a queen. Kunle would sometimes surprise her with small gifts, a necklace, a bag, or even just suya wrapped in newspaper late at night. Those things were not big, but to Ada they meant the world. She would lie down on her small mattress and whisper to herself, "Maybe God has answered my prayers. Maybe this is the man I will marry." The two of them had their little routines. Every Saturday evening, they would go for a walk around her street, eating roasted corn and pear, laughing at children chasing tires. Kunle would tell her about his business deals and dreams of opening a big shop. Ada would tell him about her struggles at work, how her boss shouted at her for being late, or how customers sometimes embarrassed her when she sold clothes. And after all that talk, Kunle would squeeze her hand and say, "Don't worry, one day all these small problems will be behind us." But love, my people, is not only about words and promises, it is also about actions. And Kunle gave Ada those too. When her mother fell sick back in the village and Ada did not know how to raise money for medicine, it was Kunle who sent 10,000 naira without hesitation. Ada cried that night, not out of sadness but out of gratitude. She called him and said, "Kunle, you don't know what you have done for me. God will bless you." Kunle only laughed. "My Ada, when you marry me, everything I have will be yours. Why are you thanking me for small things? From that day, Ada began to see her future as a straight road with Kunle at the end of it, waiting with open arms. Soon they began to talk about marriage. Kunle would tease her, saying, Ada, you better start learning how to cook for me well, because when you become my wife, I don't want to be eating only jollof rice. I want egusi, ogbono, and even fisherman's soup. Ada would laugh and push him playfully. Don't worry, you will eat egusi, ogbono, and even fisherman's soup. Ada would laugh and push him playfully. Don't worry, you will eat until you are tired. Sometimes she would sit in church on Sunday morning, listening to the choir, and secretly imagine herself walking down the aisle in a white dress, Kunle waiting at the altar. These thoughts filled her heart with joy and made her prayers longer. But my people, no sweetness lasts forever. Even palm wine, after some days, begins to turn sour. There were small signs, tiny cracks in the wall that Ada did not notice then. Sometimes Kunle's phone would ring at odd hours, and he would step outside to take the call. Sometimes, when she asked about his day, his answers became shorter than usual. But Ada told herself, it is nothing. Every man has stress. Kunle loves me. She chose to focus only on the laughter, the gifts, and the promises. She chose to believe in the sweet side of love, not knowing that the same mouth that gave sweet words could also bring bitter ones. For now, Ada was happy. She was a young woman in love, living in a city that once frightened her, but now seemed like a land of endless possibilities. And as she lay on her mattress at night, Kunle's words would echo in her ears like music. One day I will marry you, Ada. One day you will be my wife. And she would smile in the darkness, dreaming of that day. Life in Lagos had settled into a rhythm for Ada. She still woke up early, cooked for Kunle before he left for work, and managed their small room with care. But even as the days rolled by, Ada began to notice small changes in her lover. Things that at first looked like nothing, but slowly started adding up like drops of water filling a calabash. It began with his phone. Kunle, who once used to drop his phone anywhere without fear, now carried it like an egg. Even when he went to bathe, he tucked it into his trouser pocket and hung the trouser on the bathroom door. At night, Ada would hear his phone vibrating under the pillow, and when she asked, he would say, "It's just work, don't worry." But Ada worried. The warmth in his eyes had grown faint. The jokes that used to make her laugh now came less often. The way he used to hold her like she was his whole world had changed to quick hugs and distracted kisses. One evening, as the two of them sat eating beans and bread in the small room, Ada decided to ask, "Kunle, are you okay? You've been different these days." Kunle forced a smile. "I'm fine. Work has just been stressful." But Ada's heart was not convinced. A woman knows when love is shifting. Love has its language, and Ada could feel it, like cold wind blowing through a crack in the wall. Days turned into weeks, and the signs grew clearer. Kunle came home later than usual. He stopped talking about their future. Before, he would always say, "One day, Ada, I'll buy you a shop. You'll be your own madam." Now he only complained about money, saying it wasn't enough, even though Ada noticed he had new shirts and perfumes. One Saturday, Ada followed her friend Ngozi to the market. As they passed a boutique, Ngozi pulled her aside. "Ada, isn't that Kunle?" Ada turned, and her heart nearly stopped. There was Kunle, laughing loudly, his arm around a light-skinned girl wearing a short red dress. The girl was holding shopping bags while Kunle paid at the counter. Ada felt the ground tilt beneath her. Her mouth dried. She wanted to scream, but her legs refused to move. Ngozi touched her hand gently. "My sister, don't cry here. Let's go." That night, Kunle came home smelling of expensive perfume, not the kind Ada used to buy him. When Ada asked where he had been, Kunle said, "Work meeting." "Work meeting? On a Saturday?" Ada swallowed her tears. She was too broken to argue. 1 week later, Kunle didn't come home at all. Ada waited the whole night, her stomach tight with fear and anger. By morning, he strolled in, whistling like nothing had happened. "Where were you?" Ada asked, her voice shaking. Kunle's face hardened. "Don't start, Ada. I'm not a child. Stop monitoring me." That day, something inside Ada cracked. She looked at Kunle and saw a stranger. The man who once swore to build a life with her now looked at her as if she were a burden. But Ada still loved him. That love held her like a chain. She prayed, "God, please touch his heart. Don't let him leave me." She began to work harder to please him. She cooked his favorite meals, pressed his clothes, and smiled even when her heart was bleeding. But Kunle only grew colder, like a river slowly turning to ice. Then came the worst blow. One evening, Ada was sweeping their small room when she found a receipt tucked under the bed. It was for a gold necklace bought at a fine jewelry shop in Acacia. Ada's hands trembled. She had never owned gold in her life. Kunle had never bought her anything more than simple earrings from the roadside. Her eyes blurred with tears. The necklace wasn't for her. Ada sat on the floor, hugging the broom like it could hold her together. The walls of the room seemed to laugh at her. The dreams she once held, marriage, a shop, a family, now felt like smoke disappearing in the air. That night, as Kunle snored beside her, Ada lay awake. She thought of her mother's words back in the village. A man who cannot be content with little will not be faithful with plenty. Ada's heart ached, but she also felt a fire stirring inside her. She whispered to herself, "If Kunle breaks me, I will not remain broken. I will rise again." For the first time since she left the village, Ada realized something. She had built her whole future on one man, forgetting that her own life had value too. The cracks in the wall had widened, and Ada knew, if things continued this way, everything would soon come crashing down. The Kunle she thought she knew began to change, little by little, until he became almost like a stranger living under the same roof. The sweetness of the early days had vanished like early morning dew when the sun rises. Ada could feel it in her bones. Something was wrong. At first, it was small things. Kunle would come home late from work and brush off her questions with half-hearted excuses. "Baby, work held me down," or "traffic jam was too much." But when she asked for details, he would flare up and say she was nagging. Then his phone became a secret. He would place it face down, carry it to the bathroom, or put it on silent when he was at home. Ada pretended not to notice, but in her heart, her spirit was restless. A woman's heart, they say, can sense when another woman has entered her marriage bed, even if no one confesses. One evening, Ada cooked her husband's favorite, ofe onugbu, with pounded yam. She pounded it with her own hands until her palms ached. She wanted to win his heart back, to remind him of the Ada he once begged to marry. Kunle came home, tired looking, his tie loose, the smell of perfume Ada did not own, clinging faintly to his shirt. She greeted him warmly. "My husband, welcome. Food is ready." He just nodded, sat down, and scrolled his phone while she served. When he finally ate, he hardly touched the soup. After a few spoons, he dropped the spoon and sighed. "Ada, we need to talk." Her hands froze. She knew in that moment that the ground she was standing on was about to collapse. "What is it, Kunle?" she asked, her voice shaking. Kunle avoided her eyes. "I don't think this marriage is working. We rush things. You don't understand me anymore." Ada's heart pounded. "What do you mean by that? After everything we planned together? After all our dreams?" He stood up, pacing the sitting room. "Look, I've tried, but I can't keep living like this. I've met someone who understands me better. She makes me happy." The words cut Ada like a sharp blade. She dropped the tray she was holding, the plates crashing to the floor, food spilling everywhere. "You met someone? Kunle? After all my sacrifice? After I left my people, my comfort to follow you? After I stood by you when you had nothing?" Her voice cracked like dry firewood. Kunle turned, his face hard. "Stop shouting, Ada. This is why I'm tired. You don't respect me. You nag too much. You don't even try to understand me anymore. I need peace, and she gives me that." Ada fell on her knees, tears rolling down. "Kunle, please, don't do this to me. Don't throw me away for another woman. We can fix this. We can pray. We can talk. Please." But Kunle shook his head. "It's too late. I've made up my mind." That night, Ada could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of their life together, the laughter, the dreams, the promises. Was it all lies? Was she only a stepping stone for Kunle until he found someone richer, brighter, better? The next morning, the truth revealed itself like a thief in daylight. Kunle did not even hide it anymore. He packed his bags, wearing a new shirt Ada had never seen, with a fresh cologne scent Ada did not buy. He looked like a man going on honeymoon, not leaving his wife. "Ada, take care of yourself," he said flatly. "I'll send money when I can." Ada clutched his arm, her tears wetting his sleeve. "Kunle, you can't do this. You swore before God and man to love me. You said forever." He He peeled her hands off him as if she were a stranger begging on the street. Forever has ended, Ada. And just like that, he walked out of the door. Ada stood there, barefoot, her wrapper loose around her waist, her hair scattered. The neighbors peeped from their windows, whispering. Her world had shattered in public view. Days turned into weeks, and news spread like Harmattan fire. Kunle had moved in with a woman named Funky, a businesswoman with money, connections, and cars. People said Kunle now drove her SUV, wore her designer clothes, and followed her to parties like a handbag. Some pitied Ada, some mocked her. She thought love was enough, they sneered. She didn't tie him well. Others said, men will always choose money over love. Ada's parents called from the village, worried. My daughter, come home. Leave that man. But Ada refused. She sat alone in the empty house, hugging her knees, asking herself where she went wrong. Nights were the worst. The bed that once carried laughter now carried silence. The pillow that once held dreams now soaked her tears. Sometimes Ada would cook food out of habit, only to remember there was no one to eat with her. She became a shadow of herself. One Sunday, she forced herself to go to church. She wore a simple dress, tied her head with a scarf, and walked in with trembling steps. When the choir sang about God never forsaking his children, Ada broke down in tears, her sobs filling the pew. Some women held her hands, whispering comfort. Sister, don't cry. Men may leave, but God never leaves. But deep inside, Ada felt abandoned. Not just by Kunle, but by God too. The betrayal cut so deep because it was not just about Kunle leaving. It was about him choosing another woman over her. It was about how quickly love can turn to dust. It was about how a man can vow forever in the morning and walk away by evening. Ada's spirit was wounded. Her laughter was gone. She began to wonder if she would ever find herself again. The days after Kunle's betrayal moved slowly, like a snail crawling on hot sand. At first, Ada thought she would never smile again. She would lie on her small bed in the one-room apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling, asking herself the same questions over and over. What did I do wrong? Was my love not enough? Why would Kunle throw me away like old cloth? Her neighbors noticed how she had changed. Mama Ifunanya, the woman who sold akara by the roadside, would sometimes look at Ada with pity. Ada, my daughter, she would say, life has many faces. One day it laughs with you, the next day it frowns. But no matter how bitter the soup, if you keep stirring it, you will still find meat at the bottom. Ada would nod, even if her heart still felt heavy. Slowly, she started to pick up the pieces of her life. She returned to her small tailoring shop with new determination. At first, she had no energy to sew, but then she remembered her father's words back in the village. Ada, remember that the world does not stop moving because of your tears. Those words became her medicine. A new focus. Instead of crying over Kunle, Ada began to throw herself into work. She took every order, from simple school uniforms to complicated lace dresses. She would sew late into the night, the sound of her machine filling the room like the beating of a drum. One day, she decided to take a bold step. With the little savings she had left, she bought a new second-hand sewing machine and hired one young girl, Ngozi, as her apprentice. Ngozi, Ada said, we must work as if tomorrow will not come. I want people in this area to know that if you want fine cloth, you must come to Ada's shop. Ngozi smiled. Yes, Auntie, I will do my best. And indeed, word began to spread. Slowly, Ada's name started to ring in the neighborhood. Women who were preparing for weddings and parties began to line up at her shop. The return of strength. With each passing day, Ada felt stronger. The tears that used to flow at night started to dry. The pain that once pressed on her chest started to loosen. Sometimes she would see Kunle around the city, riding in flashy cars with his new woman. At first, her heart would tremble, but then she would smile quietly to herself. Let him enjoy today, she thought. Tomorrow is pregnant. Nobody knows what it will give birth to. Instead of bitterness, Ada started to feel pity for him. She could see that his smile was no longer genuine. It was the kind of smile people wear to cover a wound inside. She realized then that she had won, not because she had more money, but because her peace was intact. New friendships, new hope. Life has a way of opening new doors when one closes. One afternoon, while Ada was buying fabric in Balogun Market, she met Chike, a young businessman who sold Ankara materials. He had an easy laugh and a gentle way of speaking. Madam Taylor, he teased, I can see you know quality. Only big women like you buy this type of fabric. Ada laughed for the first time in weeks. Big woman Key? Please, I'm just a small tailor struggling to grow. From that day, they became friends. Chike would sometimes stop by her shop to deliver fabric, and they would talk about life, work, and the struggles of the city. Unlike Kunle, he never rushed or forced anything. He respected her space. At first, Ada was afraid to open her heart again. The wound Kunle left was still fresh. But as days turned to months, she realized that not all men were the same. A new dawn. One Saturday morning, Ada sat outside her shop, watching the street come alive. Children ran around chasing a football, women argued with Okada riders, and traders shouted about their goods. She took a deep breath and smiled. For the first time, the world felt beautiful again. Her shop was now doing well. Ngozi had grown skilled, and Ada was thinking of opening a second branch in another area. She no longer had to beg anybody for money. She was independent, strong, and focused. Her heart, though still tender, had healed enough to dream again. She realized that Kunle was just one chapter in her life, not the whole story. Life is like a book, she told herself. Some chapters will make you cry, some will make you laugh, but you must keep reading until the end. The lesson of Ada's journey. Ada's story teaches that love is sweet, but self-respect is sweeter. Men may come and go, but a woman's destiny is in her own hands. Betrayal may break you for a season, but if you hold on, you will rise again. As the evening sun painted the sky in shades of gold, Ada whispered to herself, I am Ada. I am not broken. I am not finished. My story is just beginning. And truly it was. If you've watched this video till the end, thank you so much for your time. Please support me by pressing the subscribe button and giving this video a like. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.